It's time for more Manifesting Original Rich-Bixch Experiences. I'm your host, Ava Bilkey. Welcome back to the More Pod. I'm so excited because today we are going to get all into the astrology of this spring. And our resident astrologer, KJ Atlas, is back. And if you caught the winter astrology forecast, it was super helpful. And it's really served as a guide to, I found myself coming back to it multiple times in terms of just checking in on the astrology, what's going on, and really making sure that I'm using the energy in the way that it's most helpful. And so we're doing this on a quarterly basis. And so if you are looking for a roadmap, if you will, of the seasons, today we're going to go through everything that's going to be happening for Aries, Taurus, and Gemini season. So let's just get into it. KJ Atlas, our resident Morpod astrologer, a welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Ava. It's so fun to be here. My favorite place to be on any given Friday, 4 times a year.
I'm so glad you're here. 4 times a year. I love this for us. And I'm so excited to be doing this. I don't know about you, KJ, but I replayed this podcast episode that we made for the winter forecast for like every new moon. I went back to the pod and I'm like, this is an excellent resource. So I'm excited to continue to create what is a really awesome resource to make sure we're having Rich-Bixch spring.
Of course. What else?
What else? It's the only option. And I think since there's so much to cover, we should just dive right into it. And I want to start with a little overview. Like, I want to recap. I want to hear how your winter went because there were so many great things that we talked about. And I just want to hear like your highlights because I think the embodiment of the content really just helps land these concepts. And so what happened for your Rich-Bixch winter? Like, what are the highlights?
It feels like the prequel to everything that we're going to cover in this episode that feels more like the big storm, the culmination, the full moon. For me, the last 3 months, you could say, were slow and steady and in true hibernation like we're supposed to be during this time. And then I noticed collectively how, there's a little bit of romance in Capricorn season. Capricorn's a feminine sign, contrary to popular belief. It really is. And it's just like, let me sip a cup of tea. I'm going to have all my goals in order, my new fresh planner. Let's like go slow and take walks. And then usually by the time Aquarius season hits, it's like everything gets a little more frenetic and busy. And that's usually around the 21st of January. So then everyone's like trying to catch up and race. But simultaneously, we had Pluto move into Aquarius and the world around us has been changing rapidly. I don't know if you've heard or noticed all of the layoffs. There's a lot of corporate bullshit coming out from the woodworks. There's a lot of political toxicity. All of these things are coming out and people are reaching their breaking point of being fed up. And this is very much a collective experience, but I noticed that around January that like, okay, the frustration has reached a peak and then we're trying to like pace through. And then by late February, we moved into Pisces season where Saturn is. And that's when things started to get really bleak for a lot of people. It's like this winter has been rough for a lot of people. It's been kind of this slow incubation period. And then the Neptunian part, we're recording this at the very tail end of Pisces season. And this period is designed to be what we manufacture December 25th to January 1st to be like. This is the wind down before the end of the year. It's rest, it's haze, confusion, it's celebration, it's overindulgence. Like we're not supposed to be grinding and running around everywhere trying to make shit happen. So it's been a really interesting time trying to get us to slow down to get ready for this big bang that's about to happen.
I really feel that. And I kind of forgot for a moment that this is the true end of the year.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, it makes sense because I do really feel like those couple weeks around like Christmas, New Year's, like that's how this time frame right now has felt. It's like a really kind of like in between period. I just want to nap. Like it's like things are weird. And so that makes a lot of sense. And, one of the things about spring is from an astrology perspective, this is really the start of the year. So
Hmm.
I am looking forward to that. And I think it's an important reminder because we talked a little bit about that last time. Like the new year really starts with spring.
Yeah.
So there's maybe some hopeful energy coming out here. And we're going to get all into what we can expect. What was one of your personal Rich-Bixch winter experiences? Share with us. Indulge us.
Oh, I went to Palm Springs for Valentine's Day, and that's one of our shared favorite places on earth that we have gone
Yes.
and played together. And every time I'm there, I feel like the most rich bitch version of myself. This is going to sound like a paid ad for Palm Springs, and it's not. Okay, guys, I love going to Palm Springs. When I'm here, I'm a rich bitch version. No. But seriously, it's so fun. I went back to the
Yeah.
heyday that you told me to go to, our favorite place, Villa Del Rey. Like, I just splurge out. It is a Jupiter line for me. I don't care
Mm.
about anything. I'm like, yes, give me more, spend more, let's go. And that felt very abundant and rich bitch.
Oh, I love that for you. Yeah, Palm Springs, we really thrive there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good lines going on in Palm Springs for both of us.
I mean, how can you
And
not?
it's
It's just such a great vibe.
yeah, that's awesome. I did not go to Palm Springs, but I did go to New York City for a tattoo that I had been manifesting for quite a
Okay,
while. So,
elaborate.
well, I've been wanting to get tattooed by this artist who works out of New York City, and they have an application process for tattoos. And I've applied a few times, and I got accepted on Christmas Eve and booked the appointment for my favorite day of the month, the 22nd of January. So I flew to New York City for a tattoo, and that felt pretty rich bitch winter to me.
That's so chic.
So really, we were both thriving, and I hope that everyone else listening had a peak, a highlight moment that they can really identify as rich bitch winter because that's a vibe. That's what we're here for. Let's get into looking ahead here and get into the forecast. So, we're covering the next 3 months. We're covering the spring period, March, mid March to mid June. And this covers Aries, Taurus, and Gemini season. But I want to just start with your thoughts around speaking into this as the real beginning of the year and what that looks like from like a nature and astrological perspective.
Oh, my favorite thing in the world to talk about seasons and natural time. So, at the equinox, the spring equinox here in this hemisphere, the Northern Hemisphere, usually happens somewhere around March 20th. This year it's the 19th. Some days it's the 21st. Depends on the year. And that marks the beginning of Aries season. If we look at the chart, it's the first degree of the whole 360-degree zodiac. It's the 1 degree, 0 degrees of Aries. Aries is the first sign. It's the raging bull running out of its cage, ready to fight, survive, take on life. It's that I think of Aries as like the Big Bang. It's like the massive combustion that created everything. And
Mm.
we have little combustions every day that create things. Every year we get a fresh start to create something new. And this is when we see the first sprouts of spring. This is when we see that little green thing pop up and be like, oh, okay, something's coming. The sun is out longer. We have warmer weather. There's hope. After a long, cold winter of hibernation, we're starting to defrost. And My ancestors are from Ireland, Norway. They're real pagan. So they were going crazy, having cookouts, barbecues, probably orgies. I don't know, concerts in the arenas, probably sacrificing people. I don't know, but it was a damn good time. And it can be a celebration. It can be as simple as, like, this is a fresh start, let me get a new planner. Or it can be, let's have a party and kick off the new year and make this the true beginning.
I love that. One of the words that stuck out was like hope, and
Yeah.
also the visual of that first like little green sprout, because it really does feel like finally when we reach spring, it's like the world has color again. And
Yeah.
I love that first feeling of that every year, right? Because it's like, oh my God, sometimes winter can just get so
So long.
drawn out, so long. And so it's just like
Yeah.
hope and green and life and rebirth and all of those things.
And I think we need
And
that harsh winter of a contrast in order to
yeah,
experience it, even though I don't love winter, but it's the same as like dark and light.
absolutely. And I love the recommendation for like just a little something new, like turn the page. We could have a huge raging party or we could get a new planner, but something that really indicates a fresh start. And if you are someone who has felt like maybe 2024 like didn't really start the way you've wanted it to, I think it's a nice reminder that this is the official start of the year ahead. So really anything that you are accomplishing is a bonus at this point.
Yeah, 100% a bonus.
When
I
we
love
look at
that.
the spring, what is like the vibe at a glance? If we were to like summarize the highest level, like what are we getting into here with spring?
It's the fast part of the washing machine cycle where the machine shakes before it's really clean again.
Oh shit.
Hold on to your knickers.
Oh god. Okay.
But it should be fun. It's not going to be boring, that's for sure.
Your visuals are my favorite because I'm like, wow, I know that cycle of the washing machine and that seems a little hectic, but at least we have a warning. At least you're letting us know now.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And I'll give you some tips to hang out and chill and strategically plan along the way.
Well, and I know a little bit, like I know we have another retrograde coming up. I know there's like some eclipses. So let's just get into the 3-month forecast. Like, take it away. What can we expect from this washing machine?
All right. Well, we start the new year on the 19th, Aries season. Welcome. Happy birthday, Aries folks. This is going to be, like we said, a hopeful time. But as we kind of enter that corridor, it's a little bit tender and nostalgic for a lot of people. It's like that transition. So if transitions are hard for you, just be gentle with yourself. This is also a time I was particularly looking at the 21st of March. I want to throw in some random dates here for the
Hmm.
girlies related to love and money because we love those things.
Yes,
And
give
the
it to us.
21st is a day where I'm like, this would be a great day to have a wedding. Like a wedding that
Oh.
lasts a long time, or like a proposal. Something that it's a Venus Saturn conjunction. And I love this for Venus things that you want to put some structure and longevity behind. And Venus things are love, money, and beauty. So
Hmm.
act accordingly. Use this. Use this as something special, especially for love. As we get into that week, that's eclipse season week because the eclipses come in sets of two. They're 2 weeks apart. It's usually a full moon and a new moon, or a new moon and a full moon. They can be flipped. And we usually, if they're 2 weeks apart, then add a week to the front and a week to the back, like bookends, and that gives you a 4 week period. So it lasts about a month, where we usually feel this intense acceleration and period of change. Eclipses are the only thing in astrology that I find it hard to predict the true outcome
Mm.
because it's like for all the wellness girlies, it's like an adaptogen. Like, you know, when you
Mm,
take a mushroom or ashwagandha or something and it modulates depending on what your body needs, eclipses
yeah.
modulate things based on what is needed to get you and the collective in highest alignment towards the direction of the North Node, which is Aries, which is about autonomy, independence, assertiveness, self reliance, direction. And so it's going to put us in that state of mind. The eclipses are going to usher us more towards that, depending on what you need individually and what the collective needs. And the first one is going to be on March 25th. And this one's kind of wild because it's the full moon version, which is I think it's the kind of the crazier version because full moons are already kind of wild. People are emotional. Ask school teacher friends or anyone who works with kids or in a hospital. People are wilding on a full moon, and then add an eclipse to it. Insane. So when we look at that eclipse, it's in Libra. It's at 5 degrees of Libra. If degrees matter to you,
Okay.
this is going to be the sun is in Aries, the moon is in Libra. They are in a stark contrast of like, this is what you want things to be, and this is where you're at. How are you going to get there? What are you going to release and surrender? Are there people in your life that are sucking your energy? Are you in relationships that are not serving you? Are you comfortable in a job that's not going to get you towards your goals, etc., etc.? It can
Mm.
come in and recalibrate all those things and usher in things that you don't expect. My best advice for an eclipse season is to be a passenger princess. Just receive. And I know this is hard for those of us who love to have things under our control. This isn't something you can really plan for. It's you kind of have to step back and let the dominoes fall and then see where they've landed before you can take action.
So that's a little tough for the people who like to have things all planned out.
Yeah, I would say have your plans um, a little flexible. You know,
Yeah.
maybe get flight insurance if you're traveling in
Okay.
case you're like, oh, I gotta cancel this last minute, or that no longer applies. I don't want to travel with that person anymore. That would be
Yeah.
one way to kind of work with it. Do things that allow you to be more flexible and non-committal for the duration of this period. Other than that, you don't have to really change anything. And I would say be open and conscious in your reflections so
Mm.
you can actually see what's coming up. Because you might have some like you might not be in tune to some of the things that are going on. It might be more like subconscious in your peripheral.
Sure.
So make an effort to be more aware of what might be adjusting.
That's interesting. When you speak to like what resonates with me is like the kind of the relationships and like reevaluating some
Yeah.
friendships, work relationships that may or may not be serving. I think that feels like personally a theme that like pinged for me as you were just talking about what we could potentially expect.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But, and I don't know what your take on this, but I feel like a lot of conversation around eclipses is very like alarmist,
Yeah. And
you
it shouldn't
know?
be.
Right.
Like, I'll
Because
give you
if
an
we can't
example.
control it, yeah.
Like, I think it's helpful if we can, like, see, like, oh, how has this played out? Like, how has this affected things? Like,
Yeah.
several years ago, there was an eclipse directly on my moon. And it did make me very emotional, but there was nothing happening. There was no event. It was just like an emotional purge. And I went to see a shaman, and she was like, oh, you have a witch wound, and you were harmed for doing spiritual stuff in a past life, and you're meant to do it this life, and you're supposed to be really safe. And it was just like a clearing, and I was like, okay, I'm good. And then I went and started my business, and it like cleared out all of that. And then like this last season, someone in my friend group just completely had her own sort of mental breakdown, and it manifested as her losing a lot of friendships, which I was one of those friendships. So it affected me, but it wasn't like, oh, it
Mm,
affected my security. This is like a life or death situation. Like we were casual friends, you know?
sure.
But it did cause like some kind of chaos. It felt like a
Mm-hmm.
washing machine, but it wasn't like, oh my God, like I lost someone so close to me. Like I lost my job. I'm trying to it wasn't this like chaos of like alarm. It's like, yeah, okay, someone who maybe isn't supposed to be in my life for this duration of it, who needs to focus on herself, um, exited, and there's a realignment so I can focus on other things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I also love how you're like, let me give you an example. And those both are not very casual. Like, first of all, like,
Really?
like the experience of being like, wow, I do resonate with this witch wound. And now I'm going to start my astrology business. Like,
Yeah.
that's
But they didn't
big.
hurt me. It didn't threaten my
Right.
security. It didn't hurt me. I didn't like I didn't go through like a death. You know, like that's what a lot of people fear, I think, is like the loss of security, the death of a loved one. And sure those things can happen. Like everyone is going to die. But it's like we
Yeah.
don't need to have this sort of alarm bell system about some of these transits.
So, first part of the eclipse, can we just expect the unexpected, but like be a little flexible and know that changes are for our greatest good?
Yeah, and I also say look back to what was going on in October 6 months
Mm,
ago, because that's going to probably be of a similar theme. Maybe this is like the second phase in maybe it brings some closure, maybe it brings more information. So you can think more critically about what was going on in October. It's a part of the same saga.
got it. Wait, is that the one where we were both in Palm Springs for?
Yeah, we were there for the solar eclipse, which is the milder of the two eclipses, and
Got
then
it.
for a lot of people, shit hit the fan by the end of the month at the second eclipse, which is the full moon. Which
Okay.
is this time we're starting with the full moon and we're ending with the solar eclipse, the new moon, and that's going to be on April 8th. Which it can feel really nice and calming, but I do have a caveat to that, and it's the fact that we have a Mercury retrograde in Aries all of April.
Ugh. The constant reminders of like a new Mercury retrograde are such a fucking bummer. It's like,
Really?
yes, because it's like you reminded me of it last week when we were chatting about this episode. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get a new computer, like I need a new laptop, like I'll do this in a few weeks. And you're like, just so you know. And I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna do it now. Like it's just one of those things where it's like I feel like we just get out of the weeds and now we're like right back in it.
I personally love Mercury retrograde. I really do. And the only thing that I won't do during a retrograde is buy technology, buy cars, and sign leases because I've seen what happens when you do that, and it's not good results. But I love it because I was born during a retrograde, so I feel like when the world's falling apart for everyone else, I can hermit and get so much done, and I feel so clear. And you have commented on it before. You've messaged me and been like, "Where's your sass coming from? You're so direct right now." And I'm like, girl, it's because every other time during the year, my throat chakra's blocked because I'm a Mercury retrograde. And then all of a sudden, Mercury goes retrograde and I'm in my natural flow. And I'm like telling him how it is.
You're like, let me have this 4 weeks. Well, I guess I'll look forward to it for you. And the computer purchase has been expedited. So
Oh, great.
I do appreciate your forewarning.
Think of it as like, I don't know if we've talked about this before, it's the exact same ratio of how much we sleep during our lifetimes. So Mercury retrograde's like our sleep period. It's like what you do when the rest of the world is asleep. Like either you should be sleeping or you should at least be like, working quietly under candlelight or like chilling on the couch and just like downtime. It's not like rush hour traffic in New York City.
How do we encapsulate the best and maybe not so best ways to work with this first kind of March to April eclipsey period?
First step, which I would do as soon as you hear this, is reflect back on October 2023, and see what you learned since then. What was going on? How have things changed? Put it on paper and see if you start to notice some patterns. Then that's what you can probably expect to come to light in this eclipse season. And for some people, they might not feel it at all. I find that it's like if you have placements in your natal chart in Aries or Libra, you're probably going to feel it more. especially the poor Libras, because that's where the purging node is moving, and that's where things can get kind of challenging. So just be
Yeah.
nice, be chill, just anticipate that there's going to be some changes and they're out of your control, so just sit back and watch them like a movie.
Yeah.
And then you write the essay on the movie once it's done.
The full book report.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
It's not going to be so bad. I like these as like, I love when I run like one-on-one programs with people, like to help build their business during this time, because I find that when I do it during where we're working in some capacity during the eclipse season, that's when things really speed up. It's like a woman birthing a child. It's like all of a sudden it's like 1, 2, 3, push, whoop, and it's like there you go. Here
Amazing.
it is.
So if you want to birth something, literally,
Mm-hmm.
or not as literally, now could be a good time.
Just make sure you start it before all of this gets underway.
One of the things that I have heard is that it's not good to manifest during eclipses. What is your take on that?
Astrologically, I really only encourage people to manifest the first week after the new moon for the most
Okay.
power, because that's like the time when the wave's coming up and you jump on the board and you ride it in. It's like you're not going to jump on the
Mhm.
board like when the wave is like already there. Literally, if you watch a video of like the ocean tides of the moon, we want to match our energy to that for the most ease. I think you can manifest, and my mentor Jan Spiller also said the same thing, that you can manifest at the solar eclipse because it's a super powered new moon. Some people are going to disagree with me,
Mm.
but I don't care. Astrologers argue with each other all the time. So
Yeah.
during a solar eclipse, a super powered new moon, you can manifest. However, the caveat with this one is that it's during a retrograde. So if you're going to take one off, maybe it's this one on April 8th. Be really
Okay.
careful about what you wish for on this
Mm.
one on April 8th. Because if we're putting intentions and words out there, like, this is what I want, and then it's retrograde and it's like not exactly what we want, it just kind of, it can throw off the course of our progress and the universe and kind of confuse like the boomerang effect.
Got it. See, this is why
So
we
the short
need
answer
you.
is typically no. Typically it's fine. Like, yeah, you can do this. You can manifest during an eclipse, but just take this one off.
Okay.
The April 8th.
In KJ we trust, and we will take off April 8th. What else do we need to know about the start of Aries or Aries season in general?
Well, here's a funny joke is that Mercury retrograde starts on April Fool's Day.
Oh my God.
That's going to be so messy. Like, I'm just waiting for all the dads of the world to like prank their families and it just turn into like a big fight.
Right. Like it was supposed to be a joke and it's very serious.
Yeah, yeah. So just be careful. The thing about Mercury loves being in Aries when it's direct, because it is direct. It's like Mercury in Aries does not miss a beat. It is clear, concise. It's like I did not stutter. And then when it's retrograde, it is going to stutter. It's going to say things that could be offensive. People are going to make you the butt of a joke, and it's not going to be nice. Frustrations, anger, buried resentment, all that stuff's going to come up to the surface. And this is not supported by the fact that Venus is also going to move into Aries. And Venus doesn't like to move into Aries because that's like, you know, peaceful, love, beauty, aesthetics, values in the warrior sign. They're not exactly congruent. And it is going to make you hungry for the things that you want. And so there's going to be this drive of like, why can't I get it? What do I need to do to go after it? And it's going to lead to frustrations because it's like you're walking on one of those airport tarmacs, but the opposite way. So you're walking, but it's like moving you backwards. Venus and Aries can be really hot for love and romance, and it can also be very frustrating in the other ways that Venus shows up, like money, like people crossing your values, people just really showing the toxic side of themselves. And I don't love that this is happening during the retrograde. We have that eclipse on
Hmm.
April 8th, and then right after that we have the midpoint of Mercury retrograde on the 11th, and that's usually a time where things get a little more intense with the retrograde. So just put that in your calendar and I'm going to be traveling on that day.
I'm having deja vu because I'm pretty sure you were traveling on the last Mercury retrograde as well. And we were talking about being the dad in the airport that's like looking at the gate, triple checking everything.
I've never missed a flight ever. And I have luck during Mercury retrograde, but the thing is like I can't prevent the delays or
Right.
other things that might be going on. So, and I did check my flight is an Airbus. It's not one of them scary Boeing
Oh,
planes right now.
good.
So,
With the like retrofitted parts. What on
yeah,
earth?
absolutely not.
That is now a new like travel requirement. It's like, what kind of plane is this flight? Because I'm not trying to lose my iPhone out the plane window, you know?
Makes my stomach hurt. Yeah, so I'm gonna update my Mercury retrograde travel guide on my website to be like, check your plane and make sure it's not a freaking Boeing Max.
It's so funny, but it's not funny at all.
It's not. That's like a life or death situation. Like, I don't wear those seatbelts on the
You
plane. Do
don't?
people wear seatbelts on the plane?
Oh
No!
my God, I do.
I know you're such a rule follower, but I love that about you. But yeah, so now I'm actually like, oh, maybe I need to wear the seatbelt so I don't get sucked out of the window.
You don't ever want to catch any air when you're in the air. Like, that is the goal of the seatbelt.
Yeah, I guess I always thought it was kind of stupid, and then it's one of those little baby rebellions where I'm like, I feel so powerful just not doing this right now. Tickles your brain in a way.
I mean, I get that. But also, the flight attendants are always checking. Don't they give you a glare when they're like, they see you're not wearing your seatbelt?
Yeah, it's happened before, but I usually am just like so covered up in a blanket or something that like it just never happens. I usually just forget, honestly. Sometimes it's not even like an intentional thing.
Uh huh.
But yeah, I'm gonna start doing it now because I don't want to be sucked out the window. But I don't ever see. I always am an aisle seat person. Like, I drink way too much water. I gotta have freedom to leave when I want to because I'm so like too polite that I will feel so bad asking the person beside me to get up to go to the bathroom 4 times during a flight.
Yeah.
So aisle seats only.
Aisle seats are going to be in hot demand these days. Like,
I know.
it's a safety
I
precaution.
liked it before. It was cool though.
Yes, you're the trendsetter. So, mid April, April 11th, retrograde intensifies. You're going to get on a plane. It's going to go perfectly. And then what?
And then we're gonna be moving out of the eclipse season. So some of these things are gonna temper a little bit, which is nice. And then right after that, April 19th, we move into Taurus season. Taurus is like, I need cheese, I need a blanket in the grass, and don't bother me.
And wine.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the things that we need to relax and chill out. But what's funny is right after that we have the conjunction of the year. Have you heard about this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction?
I don't know that I have.
We're gonna feel this conjunction we've already been feeling it. We're gonna feel it from now through April 20th.
Let's roll it back for 5 seconds. What is a conjunction?
It's when two planets come together and they're like perfectly in alignment. They're like their energies merged. They're smushed on top of each other.
Okay. So you said Jupiter
So
and Uranus.
yeah, so Jupiter is like Santa Claus who comes bearing gifts, and it's like big and chaotic, sometimes like disruptive, but in a good way. And then Uranus is like disruptive in a neutral way. So it could be bad, it could be good.
Mm.
And this is all happening in Taurus, the sign of finances and security and food systems. I think we're already experiencing this, as in Bernie Sanders is trying to push this bill through for the 32-hour work week. That's an example of this.
Mm-hmm.
People have been talking about, apparently there's something about universal basic income coming out. That's a part of this. Layoffs are a result of this. It's like the way that we work, the way that we make money, and the way that we spend our money in our economy is drastically changing this year. And it's because of this transit
Mm.
that doesn't happen very often. I believe I have some notes somewhere. I didn't think to pull it up, but I believe the last time this happened was in World War II era,
Wow.
which was also a really big time of big economical changes, big societal changes, big changes in what people as a whole value. Like, I personally feel like this is like the death of the old American dream and a birth of a new American dream, which might be more around like having flexibility and remoteness to be able to travel and be flexible in your living situation versus like the dog, the family, the white picket fence, and the 9 to 5 that really anchors you somewhere. I think that
Yes.
we're going to see a lot more
Yes.
of this
Preach.
globalism. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the stock market and the economy. But meme coins are popping right now. And I think that's also a part of like this Pluto and Aquarius and then like this sort of destruction with like the old conservative Taurus ways of managing money and the economy.
Yeah. The crypto is just starting to bounce back.
Yeah.
And was it Bitcoin that's at a new all time high, like 74,000 or something?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And a lot of these smaller coins, like I'm really, this is not financial advice. I'm really long on XRP, and that one like popped off just
really?
this last week or so. Yeah, yeah. And so like these smaller ones, like it's still a good time. Like do your research and see because these currencies are going to be a way that makes things more global because this transit can be a symbol of losing trust in big banking.
Hmm.
And when we started to see part of that with like the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, there's more and more of that rhetoric of like, okay, who can we actually trust to handle our money? Who do we want to hold our money? I personally feel a lot safer with my money in a hard crypto wallet that no one can touch, no one owns. It's like I actually own this money or gold in a
Yeah.
fire safe box.
Both, ideally, right? As we're such
Yeah.
in this like period of like in between, this could be good. This conjunction for people like you and I who have kind of been living like ahead of the curve in terms of being more locationally flexible and more digital business oriented. Like it is, it makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
obviously, it takes a long time for the majority of like the country or the world to like catch up or change, but
Hmm.
it is like the direction. So like let's keep like fucking moving in the
Yeah.
new direction.
Our generation got the brunt of it. And then Gen Z, like my brother and I are 5 years apart, and his generation is coming in and he's like telling his boss, like, I need to be remote
Yeah.
or I'm going to leave. And they're like, okay, like, let's see what we can do. Cause it's like, it's a job that can be done from anywhere.
Yeah.
And if you have someone that you trust that can do the job and they're going to do it and deliver, why not? Like, I worked for a remote company in 2018 and it was like so insanely rare.
Yeah.
Now it's like the bare minimum. It's like, okay, our cost of living is so high. I saw something the other day that said if you wanted to be at the same spending level as your parents were in the 80s making 30,000 a year, you would need to make 161,000 a year.
Hmm.
Now,
I believe it. It literally costs $200 to leave the house.
oh yeah, every day in LA, it's like you wake up and breathe the air and you spend $200. So I think it's going to be really good. I think it's needed. It's like we're going to kind of go through this crunchy constriction that's like the aftermath of the pandemic days. And then I think everything's going to be in a much better place in a couple of years, but we're going to go through some constriction to like get there, and a lot of probably more of this divisiveness and like figuring this out, and like especially people who really want to cling to the old ways of doing things are going to feel themselves like gripping in the sand that's like dissipating underneath.
Mm. Hmm.
People get really freaked out
Yeah.
and then they grip harder.
Yes. Yes. So then with that in mind, with this conjunction specifically and the timing, like how can we navigate that? Like what's the best mindset or approach?
Don't live in fear and don't live in scarcity because it's very easy to be like, oh, recession core, like let's cut back on everything. And then when we do that, it not only harms us, but it harms small business. And then everything kind of moves into a contraction. So I'm not being like George Bush after 9/11, being like, go out and spend your money, but try not to change too much. Like, yeah, if you want to cut back here and there, but like still Put your money into things that really align with your values. That's super important with this because it's all Taurus ruled. It's like if there's no value system or why underneath, don't do it.
Mm,
But do the things that there is a why or a value system underneath. So I think get really clear on that. Like, what are your things that you want to spend your money on? What are the things that actually make you happy? And like redefine your own American dream or whatever dream. It doesn't have to be American,
mm-hmm.
but figure out what that is. Like, what is your ideal life? Because it's going to look different from the next person. And the more you get authentic with that, then it's easier to kind of be like, okay, here's my cost of living minimum, and here's my freedom requirement minimum, and here's where I want to be these certain times of the year. Here's what I need to do, and make a plan that works for you.
I love that. That's great advice.
I'm also thinking about how right after that, we're going to be met with more chill, relaxed energy as we move into May. But first, we have a full moon on the 23rd in Scorpio, and that's still during the retrograde period. The retrograde doesn't end until the 25th. So this full moon is going to bring things to fruition that started back around November 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Around November 13th, we had a new moon in Scorpio, and so this full moon is going to bring all of that into light. And then shortly after that, the retrograde will end. I always say give it a few days, like just because it's like the day that retrograde is ended, everyone's like free for all, and then that day usually feels really chaotic. So it's like if you were to run and then stop and then turn around and run back, that period where you stop and turn around takes a lot more inertia than just going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So during that period where it's like shifting, it's still moving slowly as it gains speed. So you probably won't feel like you're out of the woods of this until I would say at least give it to the very last day or two of April.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll start to move faster.
And that's one of the things I've learned from you that I love, that it's like, even if something's like happening on a specific day, like realistically, it's not that cut and dry. Like there is that like
No.
transition period. And so I think that's such a good thing to keep in mind. As much as I personally want to be like, this is the last day of Mercury retrograde. Like, thank fucking God. Like, it's like maybe don't get overly excited. Give it another 48 hours, like
Yeah.
smooth transitions.
Yeah. It's
Because,
like weather.
yeah, exactly.
Like the snowstorm's over, but like we're still dealing with like ice in the roads and stuff.
Yeah,
So let the sun come out and melt it before you celebrate.
right.
I do like that the 29th Venus moves home to Taurus, and then the 30th, Mars moves home to Aries. That's great. So they're going to be in their home signs where they're very comfortable. And so everything will feel much more aligned and easeful because that whole period leading up to this, Mars is going to be in Pisces. And that creates, on the shadow end, like passive aggressiveness,
Mm,
like woe is me, victim mentality. And then Mars moves into Aries, and it's like, yeah, I'm in charge of my reality. Let's go. Taking names, cutting ties, and I'm pushing forward. And then Venus and Taurus is like, let's create some more pleasure, but let's also be really smart. Let's make some plans. Let's get really serious about these next few months. And so I'm very much looking forward to the energy of like early May, and it's going to feel really nice when we get to like the first week of May might feel kind of like slow because it's the last week of the lunar cycle, and then we reach May 7th and it's a new moon cycle. This is like dawn. May 7th is like spring is here, picnic in a meadow energy.
mm.
We have a new moon in Taurus. This is just going to feel really nice. Venus is in Taurus. I love this. This should be, we'll have a couple of like Uranian bits where it comes in and kind of repivots or changes things based on the events of the last couple of months, all through the retrograde and eclipse season. But I think these will just be like little touch points in this bigger Uranian story that we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes of like, be authentic in the way that you spend your money, the way that you allocate your time, and how you show up in your self-expression. That's really important for all of this. And so May will help us do more of that.
Mm.
we have a full moon on the 23rd. This is going to bring about all the things that transpired at the new moon in Sagittarius on December 12th
Okay.
of 2023, just to clarify. Usually it brings things together 6 months. The full moons culminate from 6 months before. New moons, you can expect them to deliver 6 months later.
Uh-huh.
I really love this full moon. Like, there's a lot of beautiful transits happening on this day, like Venus conjunct Jupiter, Venus sextile Neptune. Like, this day just like tastes straight up like cotton candy.
Oh my God, I love that.
And then my favorite transit of the whole year, because it's going to help air signs, is coming on May 25th.
What is it? I can't wait.
Jupiter moves into Gemini.
Yay! What does it mean?
Well, that means Jupiter is no longer in Taurus, where it's been putting all of this emphasis on security, food systems, finances. Like, yeah, it's fun. This is, I think there's going to be a birth of a new social media platform during this time, maybe to compensate for all the TikTok mess that's going on.
I can't
Hopefully,
even.
I think that will be good news. There'll be good news about social media, but then we will all start to sort of reckon with our relationship with social media. Like, maybe there will be new platforms and new ways to actually bring about more connection instead of less connection, which social media kind of does now. I was having this idea the other day that, well, I was in the grocery store, like a little tiny market in my neighborhood, and everyone was buying the New York strip that was on sale.
Mm-hmm.
I looked around, there was like all these people, like people my age, like we're all buying the same thing. And I was like, how cute would it be if there was like a message board or like a website where like you connect with people in your neighborhood and you're like, not like next door where everyone's complaining about crap,
Right.
but you're like, oh yeah, we all just bought the same ribeye and we're all gonna cook it. How did you do it? How did you do it? And then it's like, it facilitates this ability to be like, oh, there's gonna, like, we're gonna do this meetup in this park, like, come if you want. And it actually facilitates real life community instead of like, our communities are online. Like, I think about that a lot. I have so much community online and not much in real life. And so I think Jupiter and Gemini will help.
Yeah. I love the crowdsourcing from the local community and the steak meetup. Like that's really cute. How can we make that part of Barbie Land?
A Barbie Land app
There you go.
for the girlies and the gays, and
Yes.
anyone who's not a bigot, they can join and we can share ideas and actually become real neighbors, real friends with like-minded people. So I have really high hopes for that. That transit's going to last through next year. Jupiter stays in a sign for about a year.
Okay.
So we have Jupiter and Gemini for a long time. And so it's going to really benefit Geminis, Libras, and Aquarius at some point because it will make a really nice connection to your sun. And if you have placements there, it'll make a nice connection to your moon or your Venus, whatever. And that's always a good thing. So it'll give a little bit of blessing to the air signs of the world. And I'm stoked for it.
We need it. I'm so
We
excited.
deserve it.
And then somewhere in here it coincides with your birthday.
Yeah, I'm a 1 degree Gemini, so as soon as Jupiter rolls over into Gemini, it's gonna like bam hit my sun, and I'm ready for it.
Hell yeah. Bring it. What else about Gemini season do we need to know?
Ooh, I was looking ahead at some of these little transits, and there's a lot of like planetary energy in this last week of May, like the 29th and through like the first week of June. Um, where you might have like breakthroughs. You're going to have like new ways of thinking about things. Like, this is a great time to do like hypnosis and like shift your beliefs and do that Gemini thing where we take in a lot of information, analyze it, and then make new opinions about things. I love that on June 3rd, Mercury moves home to Gemini. So this is going to be the most clear and precise that Mercury has been in a very long time.
Mm.
And we're also going to have that emphasized on June 4th. And that's also when the Sun and Venus meet in Gemini, which is a great transit. The June 4th transit just seems so fun. Like the 3rd and the 4th, I love these days. Like it seems chaotic. There's a lot going on, but it's like chaotic good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a new moon in Gemini on the 6th. And this is going to create positive change if you set intentions for positive change that will deliver later in the year on December 15th at the full moon.
Okay.
So set those goals that you want to be delivered as holiday presents.
Ooh.
I don't want to be a bearer of bad news, but I wanted to put this out there. Like if you're planning to get married June 7th or 8th, or like a proposal, you should wait until the afternoon on June 8th, because this is a Venus square Saturn transit, and this can be really hard for healthy longevity in relationships. It's also not a good time for big investments. If you enter a relationship at this time, like be really cautious. This is not the time to lay ultimatums, have those hard conversations, sign leases. Like earlier when I mentioned that Venus Saturn conjunction, I was like, oh, this is great for sustainable relationships and longevity. This is the opposite.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna X that day on the calendar just in case.
Someone's gonna send me a message and be like, I already paid for my wedding venue on the 7th and you're just spreading hate.
No, we're
Sorry.
just trying to be
I didn't
helpful.
make the rules.
Yeah, exactly. We're just sharing.
Let me get into June. We really get into June after that full moon. It's like, okay, after that new moon, it's like, okay, we've really arrived. Like June is here. It's like, we know summer is like right around the corner. Like the solstice is coming.
Yeah.
And so this is like, I love this period of Gemini season because it's the change from spring to summer. And what better time is there in the Northern Hemisphere than the transition of spring to summer?
It feels so good.
Yeah, it's like we're leaving work early,
Yes.
we're having celebrations, parties. Like if you're in school or college, it's like, oh, exams are done. I'm like mentally checked out.
Yeah. And we all need like
All you can
the
think
summer
about is,
vacation. We all need it.
yeah. Yeah, like when I'm in my office doing Zoom calls in Gemini season, I'm like, I really need to leave the house and eat a mango popsicle in the sun, and nothing else is going to make me happy.
Yeah.
So stop hating on Geminis and Gemini season because it's a great time. Just enjoy it. Take in new information, embrace duality, take some short trips, travel around,
You know I love Geminis and Gemini season.
create an alter ego, buy a wig, and wear it out in public.
Right.
Tell the cashier at Starbucks that your name is something different. Spice it up.
And also like stop pretending like you only have like one singular identity to start with.
Tell them. You tell them. So Venus is in Gemini through the 16th. So Venus moves into Cancer. I like Venus in Cancer. It's kind of sticky and nostalgic, like honey. It's like sweet and gooey, but it's nice. You know, Venus in Gemini is more like cotton candy sprinkles, and then Venus in Cancer is more like dark honey. You know, it's like they're both sugary, but it's a different vibe.
Yeah.
And as we lead up to that, I think it will feel like a sugar high through the 16th of June. Like we have the Sun and Mercury Cazimi, which is a really fun word.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, when Bridget, my partner, was helping me create my next project,
Mm-hmm.
the Grove Almanac, she was like, what is a Cazimi? I love that word. And I was explaining it. And she's like, okay, if you get 150 people to buy your calendar, I will get Cazimi tattooed on me. So we're freezing that in time as like, this has to happen.
Uh-oh. Well, you know that's gonna happen.
I think she wants the tattoo, so.
I want to be part of this. Not in the tattooing, but I need to be there. That's so funny. Because
All right, we'll
you know
figure
it's
it
gonna
out. We'll make it
happen.
happen. But Cazimi is a fun word. It's a fun time. It helps us really have clear thoughts and new ideas and systemize everything in a way that is easy to understand. All the information's in front of us. We're very social. We can express how we feel. A Mercury Cazimi is a great time, and it makes things move really quickly, and that's June 14th. Once we get closer to Cancer season, which starts the 20th, we're going to have more Cancer energy. Like Mercury has moved into Cancer, Venus moves into Cancer. Everything gets a little more slow and nostalgic. And we ate through that, and that is the whole journey of spring.
Wow.
When I zoom out, I think about it as like red hot chaos, and then it's like you spill ketchup on your shirt and you're like, oh my god, I'm never gonna get this out. And you put it on this super fast washing machine cycle with the degreasers, and you like fiercely shake it out, and it's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? And then all of a sudden it's out, and then you take it out of the wash cycle, and then you put it on the the clothesline to dry in the sun, and then it's blowing around crazy because it's air season, and then you're like, oh, the stain's gone, and it's blowing around in the wind, and then you take it off and you put the cozy shirt on and you call it a day.
Wow, wow, wow. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm even just sitting here being like, that is exactly what just happened because I think I blacked out. Like, I don't even know what's happening in Taurus season. I genuinely know we just talked about it. And I can't even, the recall is not there, but I see myself airing out in the sun at the end of it all.
Yeah, the first part of Taurus season is kind of chaotic, and then it gets smooth as we get into May. Because Taurus season goes from April 20th to like May 20th. So the first part is kind of crazy because we're still dealing with the retrograde.
Right.
And then these planets move into their home signs, and then it's like, you get home and you throw your keys around, you take your bra off, and then you're just like, okay, I can exhale. I don't have to mask anymore.
Yes. Anything else? I mean, I want to talk about the new moons again and specific themes because I was replaying this episode like for each month. I was like, okay, what was the January moon again? Like what was the February moon again? What's going on for March? So, I would love if we could do that again where we go through the new moons, when they're happening, what the manifesting themes are, and if we have to wait till a certain time of the day to do them.
Yes. Okay, it's super important. All right. The new moon solar eclipse on April 8th. That's the first one of this season. And like I said, if you're going to take a month off, this would be the one. And if you're not going to take a month off, do it with care. This is not the one where you get really specific and you're like, I want the red convertible Audi TT. You're like, I want to feel peace in my body. There's a different way that you manifest during this kind of energy. And you're going to want to do it after 11:21 a.m. PST and before 7:39 p.m. PST on April 8th.
Okay.
That's critical. There's your window of time. This is going to deliver things that will come about later this year, 6 months on October 17th.
And this is a very specific window, this one, if we are going to manifest.
Yeah. It's a specific window, and I would just reiterate, be careful with your word choice because it's a retrograde, it's an eclipse. You don't want to be too specific. You need to make sure that the things that you're putting out into the world are actually aligned with your bigger vision. Go with the things that feel consistent to you all the time instead of just, here's an idea of what I want.
Okay.
For example, something I've always consistently wanted is like the dream book deal. And so it's like, if I were to put that out there, it's like, that's not going to be something that is just this willy-nilly thing that I suddenly decided I wanted. Like, if I were to say, oh, I decided I want a Porsche Cayenne, like that's just something random that just came through my mind, and it's not maybe truly aligned with me or my values or what I really want. So go with the thing that's been consistent with you for a while.
Okay.
And then we have one on May 7th in Taurus. I love a Taurus new moon. This feels so sturdy and peaceful and grounded. But you're going to want to set your intentions after 8:22 p.m., like in the evening, PST. And if you don't, you're also able to do it on May 8th, but before 2:55 p.m. PST.
Okay.
So I will probably set mine on Wednesday morning.
Is that the 8th?
This is one of those things where Yeah, I would say do your intentions to this related to this is a good one for finance, it's a good one for stability, it's a good one for housing, it's a good one for material items, and then superficial aesthetic things like maybe you really want lip filler. Pop off, sis. Go set an intention to get your lip filler. Maybe you really want to find like your dream facialist that you go to all the time. This is a Taurus. This is a Taurus new moon thing.
Lip filler on the Taurus.
I'm not judging.
I'm not judging either. I'm just giggling. May 8th is my mom's birthday. Imagine me sitting down with my manifestation journal on my mom's birthday, being like, lip filler, please.
That's amazing.
Oh, so silly.
Incredible.
Okay, but this is
That
good
one's
for
going to come
finance.
about
Mm-hmm.
at the Taurus full moon on November 15th.
Okay.
Love that. Then the next one and final of this season is June 6th, and this is the Gemini new moon. I think this is a great one for manifesting transportation, like a new car, or manifesting a move or travel. I also think it's great for like promotions, like with work. Like when I think of Gemini, I think of like kind of like strategically sort of making connections and climbing your way up.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something good. Like it's a good career one.
Okay.
It's a good career new moon. Cars, trips, maybe something related to like extended family or like making new friends, building community, all those air sign things.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to want to set your intentions after 5:38 a.m. PST, and anytime during that day after that is fine, but you're going to want to do it before 5:16 a.m. PST on Friday, June 7th.
Yeah, clock in, clock
Calculate
out.
to your time zone.
Right.
Yep. That's going to culminate over in December at the Gemini full moon on December 15th.
End of 2024.
Yeah, this is it. So June 6th, make your travel plans for holiday season. Be like, I'm manifesting the holidays in Bora Bora.
Yes. I'm manifesting the holidays in London. But it seems like these new moons, they all have a nice kind of varied theme for each.
Yeah. And I always say, look at your own chart and see what house of your chart, there's 12 houses, they rule different areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
What house is Gemini in? And so that's where the new moon is going to be. Like if it's in your seventh house of relationships, then that's a good new moon for relationships. So you can kind of make it custom as well. It's not just what's the theme of Gemini, but like what's the theme of the house that it's in for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it a career house? Is it a money house? Is it a love house? Is it a self-expression? Like, there's a variance there of how you can use it. I personally like to do a mix of what house it's in and then the theme of the sign.
Mm-hmm. So maybe like a goal for each.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a couple goals for each. I usually say, like, don't do more than 10. Kind of keep it in the same scope, too, if you can. Like, it doesn't work as well if you, like, make a long list of the most extravagant things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I kind of did that in January,
Yeah.
but then I went back to the
It's okay. It
list.
takes some time
Yeah, I went back to the
to refine
list
it.
and I'm like reallocating now for the next moons.
Okay. Yeah. I used to do that a lot. I'd be like, I want the partner and I want a nice car and I want a dream house with 2 stories and a patio and I want a perfect friend group and hair down to my boobs, like
Yes, exactly.
all over the place. The universe is like, sis, slow down, give me a little bit to work with at once. Which one's really important? Let's focus on that.
All of them, obviously.
But you got a whole year to go through each one and set goals each month and calibrate. So if you're like, okay, I'm in for the long game, then you get 12 opportunities and 12 areas of life to optimize throughout the year.
That's a lovely way to look at it. I'm kind of low key nervous. Like, KJ, what if, okay, so if the first manifestations of this year, January, come to be in June, what if we sit
Mm-hmm.
down in the summer forecast and I'm like, my shit didn't happen? What do I do? Like, I
Well,
feel like you always have such good results. What would you say to the
I
person who
do.
is
And
like,
but there's sometimes some things don't come true and some things do. And what I find is like when I'm sitting there setting my intentions, there's always the things that feel really easy to write down. And it's like, oh, this feels really like, yes, like my subconscious and my body believes this and believes that it can happen.
mm,
And then there's ones that I put out there and I feel a little bit of an iffy resistance in my gut. Those are usually the ones that take a couple of moon cycles, which can be like 9 months to a year to really come about. There's still some goals that I'm like still fighting for. And I know the underlying reason for it. And there's blockages around it. And so I'm like, none of this is going to happen until I sit with my demons around this and fix it.
mm,
I hate that part,
right?
but it is true.
Sometimes we have to work a little harder for it.
And so I would say, look at your list and be like, which ones do I really believe in? But don't be nervous of it. You know, just like, if anything, usually what happens is that if it doesn't fully come true, you will at that point have so much clarity around what to do with each of those themes. Like, whatever you put out on your list, if you revisit it, you will have so much more knowledge, wisdom, and experience and be like, okay, I know what I need to do to actually get this now instead of just putting this out there. Like I've marinated on it for 6 months
Mm,
and now there's all this, so much more is developed.
yeah.
And then we can use the 6 months after that to kind of tinker and play and like work with some of those things to set us up for the next year.
Hmm. There's always enough time. There's always more time.
I think there's a fear with some astrology that's like, oh, I missed a window, or it's like I missed an opportunity. And I do think that when we work with astrology, it makes things easier and it makes things more fluid. But you can still put intentions out anytime.
Hmm.
There's no law against that. I think it's easier if you do it in alignment with some of these periods, but you don't have to. Like, you're not going to mess it up or hurt yourself or punish yourself and screw up the course of things if you manifest at like a full moon, which I wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
What's the harm though, you know?
Yeah. Thank you for all of this. It seems like spring overall is going to be a little hectic, but in the end, it's going to feel like we're really ready for the summer period.
Yeah.
And I know that in addition to this as a resource, I know that you've been working on something that I am literally the first person to sign up for, but I want you to talk about your newest tool that's going to make this information even more accessible on a daily basis. So will you please fill me in on what you've been working on?
Yeah. I'm so excited. I've been working on this, you could probably say for 5 years, because I wrote daily horoscopes for over 2 years, 20,000 words a week, and tracked transits and analyzed them and wrote about them. And so I've been preparing for this for a really long time, and people have been asking, what is a resource that I can use to bring astrology into my day-to-day life? Like, how can I track this? How can I do this? And my answer has always been, oh my God, astrology is so complicated, and you have to know a really solid foundation in order to track these transits on your own. And then people were asking me, can you build an app? Can you do this? And for some reason, I felt a lot of resistance with the app, like it wasn't the right thing. Then during last eclipse in October, when we were in Palm Springs, I had this flash of like, there has to be like a calendar that is done in the way that I do astrology, which is more tangible, practical, strategic. And so I created it, and it's coming out in Aries season. It's called the Grove Almanac. And it's called the Grove Almanac because groves are areas where when we bring a lot of trees together, they flourish. And when they're taken care of in alignment with the environment around them, the seasons, and the climate, the results of the grove can be sped up. You get fruit much faster. And when we work with astrology and the seasons, our results come much faster than if we don't. We're like little trees in a grove harvesting fruit all the time. And this calendar
Mm-hmm.
is not just this PDF that you're going to print out or leave on your desktop and just check every now and then. It integrates with your Google Calendar, which makes it easy. You can turn it off if you're like, I don't want to see all these boxes today, and you can turn it right back on when you're like, okay, what is going on? And you don't have to go text your witchy friend or DM me and say, what is going on? My life is falling apart. You open the calendar and see, wow, there's like 5 crazy transits today. And it doesn't just list the transit. I've written out the range of experience in paragraphs for every single transit for the next year ahead of here's what it is, here's what this is bringing up without all the astrology language, and here's some strategic things you can do in your work life, your love life, your personal life for self-care, and here's some other dates that might be helpful for check-in points. And because I have synesthesia and everything is like a flavor or a smell to me, I've also incorporated that for the poets of the world who like the analogies, because I accidentally built a brand
Love.
based on analogies. So every single day is going to have, it tastes like this, it smells like this, and it sounds like this, to illustrate the energy even more. Because it's like an energy, it's like a weather report, you know?
Yeah.
And here's the report on how to dress for that weather. And when you sign up in March, you get it for a whole entire year. And I think it's going to be it's going to be the greatest tool that you can possibly have. And I know it's the greatest tool because I've been sourcing tools for the last 5 years and trying to think, how can I do this the best way? And so there's been a lot of care and intention behind all of this.
I mean, I absolutely cannot wait. I'm literally the first person on the list, so get in line, babes, behind me. But what an incredible resource to have this calendar, and what an undertaking from your side. Like, the amount of energy that you've poured into creating this, I know it's going to be incredible because everything you do is. And
Thank you.
we'll include a link to, I know you have like a wait list for enrollment going on. And remember, my friends, we need KJ's partner to get that Kazimi tattoo. So, like, there have to be 135 of us signed up, right? Is that the deal?
150, but we do
150.
have that on the wait list. So if everyone pulls through,
Yeah,
the tattoo's happening.
it's happening. We will link to that information in the show notes. KJ, is there anything else that you want to share about spring, making our best, really living the rich bitch life, and fully embodying what it means to live with the seasons?
Celebrate and don't forget to look up. And I just had this idea of like, make some playlists for yourself. Like, make a playlist when you're in the thick of it and it feels really intense and heavy. Like, make a playlist. It's like, this is my source of like surrender. This music helps me surrender. And then make a playlist for your sugar high that we're going to get into when we enter Gemini season. Like, give yourself some tangible to external resources that help affirm and celebrate the climate with you.
We're going to celebrate, we're going to make our playlists. We're just going to be we're
Yeah.
going to be more alive. We're just going to be living, right? Like,
Yeah.
everything's coming to life.
That's why I'm really excited about this period, because it's not going to be like the monotonous day in, day out routine. Some
Mhm.
people really need that, and I think that's why it might feel challenging for some. But
Yeah.
I think this is a chance to really feel like you're living by your whims and your gut, and you're lit up by the external input that comes your way, and then you respond to it in like a really sexual kind of symbiosis with the energy around you, where you're like, yes, I want that, let's go, let's gather the troops and go out for an evening walk and like be silly and just like pretend like you're 16 again.
Aw. Inner children, inner teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
they're coming out to play.
Yeah. This is going to be a lot more fun than the last season.
Good. I'm excited. And
Me
I'm so
too.
grateful. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to have you be such an incredible piece of this podcast, and your wisdom. It really helps me and everyone else that listens. I get great feedback. I just know that it's such an incredible tool as we are all on this journey of becoming more of who we are. And it's such a lens for understanding. And so I cannot thank you enough for the time and energy and wisdom you put into preparing these forecasts. And I always love when we get to chat. So fun.
It's so fun. You're so welcome. I'm always so happy to be here. So thanks for having me. I can't wait for the next one.
Listen to the More Pod every Wednesday as I share the things that make me more me and discover a thing or two to make you more you.